Welcome to the wonderful study of biology, a branch of science that deals with the study of living things. Have you ever wondered why life is the way it is? It is because every cell, every organism performs various activities, be it breathing or digesting the food that is taken. We can say that a living organism is a huge chemical factory where at least 40,000 chemical reactions keep happening one time or the other. In fact, the type of cell is determined by the compounds, the chemicals, the molecules that it has, and also it is determined by the type of chemical reactions that can be brought about in these cells and the organisms. It is because of these reasons that understanding the basic principles of chemistry will give a deeper, a better understanding of all the biological systems. Just as the cell is the basic unit of life, atom is the basic unit of all the matter around us. Thus, whether we are talking about the living thing or the non living thing, they are all made up of atoms. Atoms are the smallest, tiniest particles that make up the world around us. These atoms have got a massive, tiny, small central region which is called as the nucleus, having a positive charge and a huge mass of an atom. This nucleus is made up of protons and neutrons. Revolving these protons and neutrons, or say the nucleus, we have the negatively charged electrons. These do not have much mass and are revolving round the nucleus carrying a negative charge. The electrons keep moving round the nucleus at different distances from the nucleus. And these areas where the electrons are found are called as shells. So we have the shell which is closer to the nucleus, the first shell, then the second shell, the third shell, the fourth shell, and so on. Certain atoms like sodium atom, magnesium atom, calcium atom, and so on will have only one or two electrons in their outermost shell. It is not very easily possible for them to take 6 electrons and become stable to have 8 electrons in the outermost shell. Hence, what they do is they give away 1 or 2 electrons that's present in their outermost shell and obtain the stability that's required. Such an atom where the number of protons are more than the number of electrons will have a positive charge. This is what is called as a cation. Similarly, we have certain elements like chlorine, fluorine, and many of them which have around 6 to 7 electrons in their outermost shell. Now, for them to obtain stability, they need 1 or 2 electrons, and they get the electrons from elements like sodium, magnesium, calcium, which we just spoke of. Once they get the electrons, they become negatively charged, and such atoms which have more number of electrons than the protons are having a negative charge and are called as anions. In nature, we do see that there is a strong affinity for these kind of electron donating atoms and electron receiving atoms, which are called as electropositive atoms and electronegative atoms respectively. In the process of doing this exchange of electrons, they form a bond which is called as ionic bond. ionic bond is considered to be one of the strongest bonds because there is a strong attraction between a positively charged ion and a negatively charged ion. However, if this ionic compound dissolves in water, then they would again come back to their formation of original ions. The compounds having ionic bonds are very important for our body. That's because when ionic substances gets dissolved in water, then there is formation of ions, a cation and an anion. Our cells consists of minimum of 60% of water in cytoplasm and so on. And as soon as the compounds get into the cytoplasm or inside the cell, we see that there is the formation of ions. These ions play very specialized roles which controls many functions of the cell and the organism in total. For example, let's take few anions like nitrate ions, phosphate ions, chloride ions and hydrogen carbonate ions. Nitrate ions are very important anions because these are required for the formation of amino acids and the formation of proteins in both plant cells and the animal cells. These ions are also very important during the formation of DNA. We have phosphate ions which are very important because the energy currency of our cell, the ATP, consists of phosphate groups. Also, our DNA, the RNA also have phosphate groups or the phosphate ions present in them. The chloride ions are very important because they help to conduct the nerve impulses and are also a part of many secretory systems. And then we have the hydrogen carbonate ions, which are very important because they help to maintain our blood at a same pH throughout, and hence we call this blood as the buffer. Similarly, we have certain cations too which play a very important role in our cells like sodium ions, calcium ions, hydrogen ions and magnesium ions. Sodium ions are very important because they help in the nerve impulses and conduction of the impulse. Then we have the calcium ions, very important because they help in the formation of cell wall and the cell communication. Also, we see that the calcium ions are important in animals because they help in the bone formation and muscle contraction in animals. Then we have hydrogen ions which helps in cellular respiration. They also help in photosynthesis and helps to maintain the pH of the cell and the organism. We have magnesium which is present in the chlorophyll of the plants and very important for the production of chlorophyll itself in the plants, very important for carrying out photosynthesis. Another type of bonding that is very important and significant is the covalent bonding. If an atom has somewhere around 4, 5 or 6 electrons in its valence shell, then getting more than 2 electrons or giving away 2 electrons for the formation of an ionic bond would not be feasible. Under such conditions, the atoms would prefer to share their electrons and minimize their energy and get stable. These bonds are considered to be very strong, and we see that the molecules that are formed later are neutral. However, under certain conditions, we do also notice that the molecule that is formed is not neutral but is slightly polarized. It means to say that when there is a bond formation, one of the atom would get a slightly positive charge and the other one would get a slightly negative charge. The reason for this is that out of the two atoms involved in forming a covalent bond, one of them will have a higher ability to pull the electron towards it and obtain a slightly negative charge, and the other one, which does not have this energy, cannot pull the electron towards it and obtains a slightly positive charge. Now, how do you get to know if it is having this slightly polarized nature? Now, we can get to know that slightly polarized nature by going with a simple common notion that if our molecule has more than one hydrogen atom involved in the formation of a bond, then there can be a slightly polarized molecule in the end. Now, such a molecule which is not neutral throughout the molecule but exhibits slight polarity, we call such molecules as the polar molecules. For example, water can be a polar molecule. Can you think of the importance of the neutral molecules and the polar molecules in our cell?